following podcast is recorded and produced by Emerge, a media creators co-op, in affiliation with the network at bicbp-radio.com.
Hello and welcome back to the Next of Kin podcast. I'm your host, Rich, joined by my son, Christian. How are you doing today, sir?
What's up? How we doing?
You look like you're doing homework over there.
Brown slipped down.
He's getting things ready.
Sure.
After the podcast already started. So.
Yep.
But welcome back.
It's been a little while.
I'm not sure. We've been inconsistent. Just too much going on right now between the two of us. A lot of exciting things going on at Emerge. We have a a lot of podcasts coming up.
We got podcasts that make us money going on.
Yeah, we have some cool This
don't make
Emerge. Obviously, for those who I'm not sure how much people know about who listen or watch the podcast.
Yeah, understand the wider context.
Yeah, we operate. Our family operates the business known as Moreno Media, which operates a facility called Emerge, where we are recording from, and we've been in the process of building more sets. And we've built 2 more sets down in our basement. So we actually have 3 full podcast studios here at Emerge now. And so Christian and I participate in another podcast called the 716th Attack Legion, which is a Star Wars podcast. I just started a new podcast, which hasn't dropped the first episode, with 2 gentlemen. The podcast is called Double Fist Punch Podcast, which is a Star Trek podcast, and we have many other podcasts coming into Emerge. So we've been very busy getting the building ready for lots of other things.
Zach's trying to revamp his.
Yes, the Zach Squared is going to get rebranded as the Beefy Persons,
which
or
I'll
Beefy
probably
Boys.
Be on that one a little bit as well, because that's a lot of my friends.
Yeah. So Emerge started off with like 2 or 3 podcasts, and we're going to be up to 11 or 12 or 13, depending on what happens this week. So appreciate everyone who's been participating. So today we are going to be talking about just what we've been doing, like what we've been watching when I haven't been here and you haven't been at your job. What have we been working on or watching? While he's kind of just finishing up a couple things, I want to say the biggest thing I think we've enjoyed watching has been Strange New Worlds. Correct?
That's one of them. Yeah.
So we saw Oppenheimer, which we were very bless you. We're very happy with that. I don't know. Oh, we've been watching My Adventures with Superman.
Yeah, we're gonna get to all this.
We'll get to some of that, and also a little bit with what else you writing down over there?
I don't know, but we'll see when we go through.
So we'll see. Well, we'll start with let's start with the Strange New Worlds. So this is season 2 of.
I don't know. I think we talked about it once or twice.
We did. We might have mentioned. I'm sure we mentioned it before that we are watching Strange New Worlds, which is the Captain Pike.
I think we talked about it after like the second episode. Was like I think the only time.
I think we kind of
trial episode. I think was the one we only.
Yeah, I think we kind. I think that's pretty much where we kind of were when we last talked about this.
Yeah.
So we just finished the season. The season just ended. I don't know, like
I don't know, probably not as good as it's very good still, like just like the first season. But I think the first season was probably a little bit more like put together. But there was some really, really like the high points of the season though were like particularly like there was some good stuff. Like,
I don't think there was a bad episode this season.
Actually, maybe the first one.
So yeah, the first episode. You're
the
probably
first one was
right.
Weird.
There was nothing wrong with the first episode, but it was a really weird first episode.
I just remember there being like 25 minutes in the middle of that episode where like nothing happened.
Yeah, I think the funny thing that happened with that episode was
moved around a bit,
was
right?
that was an episode they had planned, but what happened is the actor playing Captain Pike. He had a family thing going on. I think his wife had a baby or something, and he took time off to be home. So the timing just worked out. So they decided to do this episode. Yeah, so he wasn't a lot in that first episode. Even the second episode, which is the trial episode, which we already discussed. But then really after that, I don't know. I really was happy with where it went. Just some highlights,
Yeah, try to refresh me on like what the episodes like were.
Okay, so first episode was the one where basically they interact with the Klingons. The second episode was the trial. The third episode was really, really, really good. That's the Captain Kirk, the alternate
That's the
universe Captain
Toronto
Kirk.
one,
Yeah, filmed in Toronto. Lana travels back in time. Very much.
Which that one gets better as it goes.
Yes.
Like you think it's just you think it's a gimmicky episode because they just film. They're like, oh, we film in Toronto. We need to save some money, so we'll do like a back in time Toronto thing. But then it actually becomes something like unique and kind of like very much in line with a lot of like the other weird like. Because they do this a lot, and those type of stories happen a lot in Star Trek.
It's incredible. It's an incredible episode. And it's very much related to, in my mind, City on the Edge of Forever, which is one of the best original series episodes where Captain Kirk and Spock get head back in time. And there's a lot of Easter eggs in this episode that we learn about Captain Kirk, that he's very good at chess, which we already kind of know. There's a lot of things that happen in this episode.
Kirk, the character who plays Kirk, which I think we said at the beginning of the season, or the actor that plays Kirk, I don't know his name. You didn't think he was like great last season, right?
I thought he was fine.
He was fine, but this season I think he stepped up and he's actually like a bit like more. I think he's harder to do than like say like I don't know. It's very like Kirk's also like very much like of the time, the way like that the character acted, so it's hard to like do that just play like 60s 70s Kirk like in 2023.
Yeah, I mean the meme for over the years or whatever you want to call it has been the cliche is that William Shatner overacts as Captain Kirk. What are you going to do? Like, don't you?
He's like
understand?
a little bit more subdued, I think, than Kirk.
And I think they realized they couldn't do that. But the actor kind of has the sense of humor. The mannerisms, I think, some of the physicality, and what I liked is they kind of found a slightly younger actor, because someone else had wanted to play Captain Kirk on TV in this role, and whoever it was I forget what.
But they were like too old.
They basically they were just too old. They said no, there's no way you can do it because this Captain Kirk in this time frame is not Captain Kirk yet. He's still Lieutenant Kirk.
Which I guess,
this is 10 years before. This is supposed to be 10 years before he takes command of the Enterprise.
He's in like 3 or 4 episodes this season.
I think
because he's the co-star of one entirely.
Yes.
He's in like the one where like Ahura is like the main focus a lot, and I think there's probably one.
And then there's one other one where there's the other one too.
There's the one where
where he finally has the other scene with Lana.
Oh, you're right. Okay, which one? Oh, that's like there was weird shit on the ship, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
When they're singing, it's the singing episode.
Was that the one where he was shadowing
yes.
He was shadowing Number, which that also makes sense why like he would have like relations with like a lot of these characters already.
Yeah, I think
and then also why like Pike would like have like known Kirk and stuff like ahead of like everything that happens in that series.
Right. So the second episode is a tremendous episode. It's set back and slightly ahead of our time frame, and it kind of explains like an alternative universe. It's just a great. A lot of people, I guess, could complain that there's too many things that are like the fact that she's related to Khan, for example. But they've actually turned it into a really good subplot about how uncomfortable she is, like within her own skin, because it's like she's the great grandchild of Hitler, so to speak. Like it's almost like she's an ancestor of Hitler, and in that respect,
like a demonized figure, like of the time,
right? And so I think like. The Captain Kirk that she meets in the alternative universe is the first kind of doesn't know who Khan is because in that universe Khan never ended up taking over the world, so to speak. And World War III, essentially, the eugenic wars never happened. So they did this weird thing, and then there was like some aliens from the future, which kind of like there was this. It's just really
most of the actors
really
are pretty
well
good
done
on the show, but that girl like in that episode really fucking killed it.
Who I just realized announced the other day to you when we were watching TV, like that she was in an episode of Doctor Who, which I thought was funny that I didn't even recognize the actress.
Yeah, from like 10 years ago.
But that's a really, really good episode. The episode right after that is the one where Spock and Nurse Chapel are on a mission, and he does something, and the aliens take the Vulcan
that's
DNA
right, yeah.
out of his body
He's
so
just
that he's
human.
only human DNA. And that's a really, really good episode because of all the My Fair Lady, Pygmalion aspects of him trying to pretend to be Vulcan. And then there's a lot of things in that episode, and it leads to him and Dupree taking a break, kind of like on Friends. So,
It's sure.
but we watched that episode, and I remember you and I were discussing it, and I said, okay, Ethan Peck really has captured what it's like to be Mr. Spock and to play it like a Leonard Nimoy-ish Mr. Spock.
Yeah. Yes,
Especially because then he had to play his version of Mr. Spock without being a human version of Mr. Spock, and then having to pretend to be Mr. Spock. So he had to play a version of his character, which is already basically trying to emulate a previous actor, which is hard enough.
Yeah.
And then play that character without emotions, pretending to have no emotions.
Yeah.
Like, it was like, what? Like, he really like endeared himself
like
to me
even
as
within,
in
like,
this role.
The 10 episode format, which is obviously like much less than like previous,
Right.
Like shows focusing on a ship or whatever,
Right.
Like, which I guess is everything. Typically had like in the past, it's like how many episodes would like fucking Picards have when it came
I
to,
think
20 at a time, something more.
What, mean like Next Generation?
Yeah, like anything like that. There was more.
I think there were
episodes than 10.
20. I'd have to look up. I think it's 26 actually.
Okay, yeah, but even with the 10, I feel like the topics of a few of the episodes still managed to get like the quirky, like weird, like episodes that you get like in Star Trek, like all the time that maybe aren't like at the forefront of what everyone thinks about.
Well, the
about
one-offs,
genre,
the one-offs are great about Star Trek because
Yeah.
some of the best episodes are one-offs, like Sid on the Edge of Forever, Trouble with Tribbles. I mean,
like
all
this
of
one
Next.
where they removing Spock's like DNA, like
Yes.
that felt like a '60s plot
Yes.
to me. If that made sense, like that.
Well-
we forget like.
Well, there's a very famous episode of the original series. One of the things that would happen on the original series was Spock would, for some odd reason, start showing emotion.
Yeah.
And that was always a big crisis. That happened several times. But then there was also one episode in the original season, which we'll be talking about on the Double Fist Punch podcast, where Captain Kirk in a transporter accident gets split into two versions of himself, and one is basically good and one is basically evil. And it's a moral play about why you need both sides of you. You need the dark side of your personality in order to be able to do the good things, because you have to have that balance. You have to have that balance. I guess it's like the Force.
What was episode 4?
So that was episode 4. Episode 4 is the one where they get separated. That was called Charades. Actually, that's episode 5.
Yeah.
Among the Lotus was the one in there where Captain Pike has to go back to a planet, and it turns out that he had left a crew member behind.
Yeah.
And that was a really dramatic episode because like they were losing the ability, they couldn't remember who they were. Mm-hmm. There was a lot of weird stuff going on in that episode.
Yeah.
That was a good episode. I liked that episode a lot.
Cool.
Everybody, the doctor was very good in that episode, and
the guy that got left was pretty alright. So.
Then we get to Lost in Translation, and that's the Uhura one.
I think it's mostly good.
Yeah, that was okay.
That was mostly solid. I think Uhura, like, I don't know. There's less.
It was like there were hallucinations and stuff in that one. There was one that was like
wasn't the other guy that was like doing this? I don't remember that one as
the guy in the other ship and all that stuff. There was like the other guy.
Oh yeah, she was having the same thing as somebody else. And
it turns out that there was like an alien that was like basically they were killing an alien race.
Yeah,
because they didn't realize it. So that was.
They were like a microscopic.
Yeah,
they were like in the gas or something,
yeah.
right? That one was good actually.
So that one was a cool one. I mean, because I think that one had a lot of fun.
7.
A lot of dramatic aspects of it.
7
and then
7 was what? The one with the flashback one?
No, 7 is the one where they overlap with the two live characters from Star Trek
that one
Lower
ended up
Decks.
being surprisingly fun.
I was worried about that episode a lot.
Yeah.
But I think it works because
It's pretty funny actually.
I think it works because what's his face, who was
He translated really
Jack
well.
Quaid, who plays Brad Boomer on the animated series, but then he played that live action character.
Yeah.
And it was really fun
He's
because
from
I
The
guess like
Boys.
what?
He's from The Boys, right?
Yeah, he's from The Boys, and he really
He's Huey or whatever.
yeah, and I think he's the voice of Superman on the other show we're going to discuss today.
Oh yeah, I think you're right actually.
So
yeah.
he's a very busy guy. And but I thought they really played great action versions, and they did a lot of fun with the animation. Like it was cool, like because remember they go through the portal,
Yeah.
and then they were animated characters, and now they're with human characters like in regular live action. But for the opening sequence, they did the opening sequence as an animated version of the opening sequence as a nod to obviously. So there it was. I was wondering how they were going to do kind of a comedic Star Trek show that's animated with a live action. So it was a
There
very
was still,
silly,
like, a little
fun
bit of stakes
episode.
to it, but like nothing huge. But they also managed to have some like interesting like ways that like them knowing the future and knowing who a lot of the people on the ship were because
Right.
of their names, like kind of impacted them and how like that affected, or like even like how it affected like Chapel and like Spock's like relationship, which
Yeah.
was going on at the time. Because he was like worried about Spock because he was acting like differently from like how he's supposed to act, like
Right.
how we know, and he thought he fucked something up or
Yeah,
whatever.
like, right. And it was. There were some deeper implications to a silly one-off.
Yeah,
But
like they
they-
used the time, like the fact
Yeah.
that they traveled back to other effect than just like humor and crossover. So,
And again,
yeah,
that
it
was
worked fine.
Yeah, I mean that one I was, and again it was a fun crossover. And there
Episode
was,
8 was cool. Anytime we went to see the Doctor just do like Doctor do shit, basically that's like because the Doctor is like super mysterious. But what's his name?
yeah,
What's the
M'Benga.
M'Benga, yeah. Like M'Benga's cool and he's a very good actor. So like they had the one flashback one which is like mostly like which is when like what him and Chapel like
Yeah.
met like
Yeah.
on whatever
Yep.
war they were in.
Yep.
Which even that showed like the logistics of how like they brought wounded in with like
with
transporters
Yep.
and like it's very interesting.
and some
So,
yeah, there was definitely some in that episode.
I forget what
That's
was
the
going
next
on in real
episode.
time
That's
in that
under the
episode.
cloak of war. That's the next episode.
What was going on in real time during that? Oh, that was the what's it called? That was when the diplomat was like
Yes.
on the ship.
The next episode was the Klingon diplomat who was basically like the butcher of something.
Yeah.
And this was a very war-centered episode, thinking back to the war. And it really talks a lot about like PTSD and kind of a lot of the things that they all had to go through and like all the memories they have to live with. And then this kind of this Klingon that basically had essentially defected, but
after a like on paper or like claiming to do a like like significant amount of like
and the doctor is just great in that episode, and he was at that battle, and then obviously through the course of the episode we find out that
that like the doctor did the thing that like that made the guy infamous. Basically,
it's got a very
like, it's like, what the
dark
fuck?
and it has a
was
very
like-
very dark ending.
yeah.
So I don't want if anybody just watch the show, and I hope that if you're listening to this,
We still don't fully know what the fuck
Yeah.
M'Benga, like why M'Benga is able to do like why he's like an assassin.
well, I think
like-
before he became a doctor, he was trained in like special forces.
No, okay, but we don't know like specifically any of the details behind like he's that
Well,
yet.
Obviously, anybody that knows anything about Star Trek knows that M'Benga appears as not the same actor, obviously, but in the 1960s
Yeah.
version of the show, there's a black doctor named M'Benga who is on the show, and he's kind of like we only see him twice, and he's kind of the backup doctor. But right now he's the chief medical officer of the Enterprise, and obviously we know Dr. McCoy is coming, and
Yeah.
Dr. Boyce is going to be in there for one episode at some point because obviously there's another doctor that appears in one episode of Star Trek.
How early? Sorry, how early in the show is M'Benga like seen in the background?
I'd have to go back and look
Like
at
early,
the
early?
episodes. No, I don't think it's till like second or third season.
Oh, so that doesn't make any sense then.
No,
So
so like yeah,
so
like,
it makes
yeah,
like
I don't
no
even
sense
I don't know
then.
how they're going to explain
They're
it.
not
It's going to
going
be.
to, really.
I think what they're going to explain on this show is why he's no longer on the Enterprise.
Like by the time, probably.
Yeah, or he gets demoted of some sort, and we kind of know why if you watch that episode. Then we had the musical episode. Now I'm going to look right at the camera for this. I hate musical episodes of anything, and I like musical theater, but I hate musical episodes. But this one worked sometimes, right?
Yes. Yeah. There are some songs that went too long, like
Or
and,
maybe
like,
too many songs.
I mean, yeah, maybe there was one too many, but at least it wasn't like every scene was a musical. If that made sense, which like occasionally happens with these.
The
sort of
reason
things.
they were singing was kind of fun because that
Well,
they were
had
from
a good
they
in-universe
were
reason. Yeah.
overlapping with a parallel universe where everything is done via song.
Yeah.
And stylistically, for whatever reason, it was musical theater because that was the song that she had played.
Yeah.
Like when she was transmitting something
Like
through.
or,
there.
no, she had played the like she she fed like the Earth. Like Earth music into it basically.
Right.
So like depending on where you were on the weird strand of like
Right.
whatever it was, like you would get like a different like wavelength or genre
Right.
that you would kind of tap.
But
into,
they were all
like,
stuck singing like.
Yeah, but I think that because every ship eventually got infected, and I think the idea was that every
the whole
ship,
universe was getting infected. Or the whole galaxy.
Well,
so to
I
speak.
think everyone who's connected to the Star Trek. Like the what's it called? The Star Trek, the Star what's it called?
Starfleet.
The Starfleet
Because
communication
it's spread
system,
through
I thought
the
was,
subspace network or
Yeah,
whatever
exactly.
the heck it was.
But I think like every ship.
But also the Klingons got affected by it too. So we saw the
and they were
Klingons acting
saying,
like a boy band.
So I think every
and
like
they were pretty mad about that.
yeah. So I think every like ship was technically like in a different like genre, if that made sense.
Yeah, because the other ship was singing too, and a lot of it worked and a lot of it didn't work.
Yeah, some worked better than others. Like,
Yeah, and I felt like you said some of the songs, and some of the songs weren't that good. Like
Yeah.
they weren't good. A couple of them were really good. Like some of the performances, like where I thought like when again Ethan Peck when he sang, he was good. I thought Her was pretty good. I don't think the captain could sing at all. Like I don't seem like
yeah, he didn't have as many. Like
Right.
he was just more supplementary when he had to sing, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Or like he would. I think the only one that he was mainly the focus in was the one where he had to sing like his relationship issues, like out in
right,
front
and
of,
it was
like,
almost more spoken. Like,
Yeah.
why are we so we can't talk about this? Like, and it was kind of like, and then it was funny because clearly the doctor couldn't sing, and they even said like, I can't, I will, like he just kind of disappeared for a lot of the episode, which was kind of fun.
Chapel could sing.
Chapel could sing, and
Actually,
then,
she was really good. Actually,
Yeah.
she's like an unknown. So like,
and they did a fair amount in that episode to kind of ended up having a lot of like musicals do. There was a lot of stuff that was brought out because they were singing. A lot of like inner monologues.
yeah, like
so to
actual
speak.
like character development and like reveals or whatever you want to
Yes.
call it, like actually happened because of the
Right.
So they I think they did it about as well as you possibly could
Right.
have, if that made sense. So, like it was fine.
And
It was
then
good.
finally we get to the last episode,
Which
which
is-
is the Gorn War. So now we have a full-on kind of Gorn invasion
Yeah,
coming.
which those things are fucking creepy.
Which is funny because obviously they don't look anything like the Gorn that's on the original
There's
series.
a dude walking around.
Yeah,
It's
this
just
dude walking along.
in a fucking they're like on all fours and shit. They're like these CGI.
They're all CGI.
They, like, burst
and,
out of your chest.
And obviously that, I mean, you can't. We're going to put a guy in a monkey suit, like basically, like.
And they did like they did a Deep Space thing where they left it off for the next
Well,
season, which is that's typically
Next Generation, Deep Space Nine. They all did.
cliffhangers.
They all did cliffhangers, so they did a cliffhanger.
I don't think the first season
yeah.
was a cliffhanger. The first season just ended.
But
pretty
and in that episode, that was fun because in that episode we got another legacy character back because we met
Scotty.
Scotty, and everybody's been talking about that a little bit online about it. It's kind of a
People like him.
I think he's fine.
Okay.
Nobody's really got a complaint because
That was solid.
he
Cool.
was a nice. You know what they described him as? He was a lot like James Doohan, the original Scotty, but he had a little bit of that Simon Pegg from the movies in him too.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
So
like,
they had a little bit of the Simon Peggy kind of humor, but he was a lot more like Montgomery Scott in terms of like his just like innate abilities to just make shit up. And I don't know. I thought they did a really nice.
I enjoyed his character.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like eventually we're gonna see just about every character. I mean, I don't know if we'll see Chekhov and Sulu, but I feel like we'll get one of them relatively soon,
Probably one or two.
and
next
maybe a
season,
Dr.
yeah.
McCoy.
I feel like
there's
McCoy.
there's three main legacy characters left.
Well,
we've not
McCoy and
seen.
Kirk are supposed to be
Chekhov,
friends before
well,
the
4.
ship, right?
Haven't seen Yeoman Rand yet, which I don't think we ever will.
No,
we haven't seen McCoy yet,
What
which
about the
doesn't
guy
make any
who-
sense if we
need
will.
to see the guy who gets magical powers.
What?
We need to see the guy who gets magical powers. Like in the
I
episode
think at some point though. So what Christian's referring to,
you have
he's
to
referring
explain.
to the original Captain Kirk Star Trek pilot, which is Where No Man Has Gone Before, and in that episode. Captain Kirk's first officer, in a sense, isn't even really Spock yet. It's Gary Mitchell, who's
Was that
his
guy's
friend from
first
the
officer,
academy.
or was that one of the guys like in the 2 chairs or whatever in front of him?
He's kind of in Chekhov's seat.
Oh, okay, yeah.
He's kind of like the
Okay.
weapons officer to the right of the helmsman. So,
Yeah.
like, I think I'm not. I don't.
Yeah, where's Gary Mitchell? We need to see Gary
So
Mitchell.
I wouldn't be
We need
surprised.
to-
Well, it's very funny because in the Captain Kirk episode where he finally has a discussion about a romance with Lana, he references the fact that he would love to date her, but he's in a complicated relationship with Carol, which is, for people that know the Prime universe, Captain Kirk ends up with Dr. Carol Marcus. They have a child, but because she doesn't want her son following in her father's footsteps, galloping, all over the universe. So she pretty much tells, this is again from 1982 when the movie comes out, that she pretty much made an agreement with Kirk that he should stay away and let her raise her son. And so that's how they explain why Kirk never mentioned that he had a son until we see him in Wrath of Khan. And it doesn't end well for David. Spoiler alert. So,
Nice.
But they kind of mention some of those things. They've done a good job with canon. Like even the fact that Nurse Chapel is going to be leaving the Enterprise at some point. She's going off to work with Dr. Corby, which is how we kind of have the first real Lieutenant Nurse Chapel focused episode in the original series where we'll actually meet Roger Corby. So they are definitely going to be leaning on.
Spock beats him up.
Spock stabs him because he's jealous.
Through the throat.
The spoiler. So
in the
I don't know.
1960s
So
on
in
TV,
general, what I would say about this season is that it's really brought the Star Trek fan base together, almost as much as Picard season 3 brought back the newer Star Trek fans.
Yeah.
Because of Picard and all the cast from Next Generation all returning, but this show, in many ways, I think has brought all of the Star Trek fans together.
That was this year too, right? Picard was this year.
Yeah.
So they got two pretty solid back to back hits then.
I would argue right now that the Star Trek universe is nailing it, and they're giving the fans what they want.
It's certainly way healthier than Star Wars. I'll tell you that much.
Because again, I feel like it's there was not a lot of divisiveness around Picard season 3, and there wasn't a lot of divisiveness around.
To be fair,
during Strange New Worlds.
And that's a good way to shift off this because
yeah,
I think that's
we're
about
almost
all
done.
we have for Strange New Worlds. Because Ahsoka comes out next week and
this week,
this week, Tuesday. So a couple days from now. Fuck.
Yep.
And I'm very excited. I think that I'm sure there's a lot of Star Wars fans that aren't nearly as excited because I think you have to be a very particular type of fan to even they said the show you can kind of come in cold, not knowing as much, and maybe not watching Star Wars Rebels, which is very much where a lot of the characters, most of the characters that are in this seemingly are from.
Well, Disney, even on Disney Plus, had that one tab or whatever you want to call it, where you could watch all the episodes they recommended that you should watch before watching.
But I also appreciate that that Disney finally was like, okay, we're gonna give some the diehards, people that watch all the cartoons and watch everything, care about maybe the wider everything. We're gonna give them a show. It's Filoni, obviously, who did Clone Wars. He's a big part of Mando, not the last season, which I think is one of the reasons.
Because he was focused on Ahsoka.
Hopefully. And there's 8 episodes, which it's better than the 6.
Better than 6.
Which for that gets stuck with all the Disney Plus shows got stuck with, the Marvel ones got stuck with. It's better than Obi-Wan.
Right.
Also, having it be 8 episodes makes me think that it's not just something that was supposed to be a movie, that Disney Plus is stretching out into a bunch of weeks for content.
Sure.
So it makes, and also I don't think, I have very little trust in Lucasfilm. I think we've made
yes,
that's been very well associated. But I have at least some level of faith in Filoni. For one, it's his. Yes, people know who Filoni is. I think by this point.
Anybody, I don't know as much of Filoni as you do, but I know that Ahsoka's his favorite character.
Well, it's his character. Yeah. It's the character that it's his first character that he literally made with George Lucas.
Right.
He's seen that character go from hated to beloved to one of the most famous characters in the franchise. Probably the strongest female character in the franchise.
Well, look where she is on our board behind you. She's in our top 4 or 5 on any tier list. She's gonna be in the top 4 or 5.
Luke Skywalker, Darth Vader on this fucking tier list here.
And the actress portraying her is great.
Yeah, and both the voice actor Ashley Eckstein, who did a great job until she was eventually with what's it called I'm forgetting her name. Who plays her in live action again? What's her name? Rosario Dawson. Who obviously was for years was fan casted to be the character, and she did a good job portraying the character in Mando and in Book of Boba, the one episode she's in. I think her fighting looks way better in the franchise as well, because I think that's one of the only things you could maybe nitpick.
Right.
In the Mando episode that she's in is that I don't think she's quite confident enough with the saber yet in that episode, but I don't know. I'm very, very excited going forward. But also, I think there's been one of the, and usually I'm not this negative, but one of the lies about Star Wars fans has been like very much dispelled by like this show, because there's no one screaming like wokeism, like woke, and like everyone's not upset just because like it's Ahsoka's show, and that's like Sabine is like like the two main characters, or like the three main characters seem to be Sabine, Hera, and Ahsoka, all female characters. All well-liked characters within the fan base, and nobody's bringing up a stick, because guess what? If you make good characters, it doesn't matter their gender. People like them and will happily follow them.
I agree with that. That's like the the
it
joke.
doesn't matter. Star Wars fans don't hate women.
Right.
Like,
well, that's the funny thing.
There is a decent amount of Star Wars fans that are like hateful, and they're a minority.
I don't think Barbie's
vocal.
making as much movie money as that it's making because it's about a girl.
Well, I'm not even talking about the overall
I'm just thinking
I'm
in
talking
general,
about specifically the
make a
lie told by the
good
media
product
about
and
Star
people
Wars fans.
just make something that people want to watch and make it good.
Because that's one of
don't
the main
make it because
defenses
you're
of the
trying
sequel
to
content and other some of
agenda
the
or something.
content that like Lucasfilm has made, is that it's like we can't accept it because it's like more like diverse or like something like this. It's like no, like this is very like these are like three well established probably besides Leia like and Padme are the like round out the other top like 5 in terms of like popular female characters in the franchise.
Right. So what are your thoughts or hopes with what's? So we got 2 episodes dropping on Tuesday. They moved it up a day. Which
my
is
hopes
funny.
is that I just want to enjoy.
You have any guess why they might have moved it up a whole day?
Idea. It's all they always do. Weird
is there
like
something
that.
coming out this week
I have no fucking
that they're
idea.
worried about it competing
No, I doubt
with?
it. I just imagine they just did some weird. Or sometimes they do it like, look, we moved it up a day, like to make you feel better. Like I don't know, like they do that sometimes.
Because we'll be in here on Tuesday watching it, and then we're going to immediately go into the 716 recording. We're going to record an episode as soon as we're done in our new set down in the basement. So.
I don't know. I need it to. Star Wars needs it to blow people away. That's like they really do, because they
the
haven't.
Star Wars franchise needs this to be a home
Disney
run.
needs it to be received.
This has to be. I don't think this can be an in the park. Single.
I don't know if it will be.
I think
like,
this needs to be.
I will probably love it if I had to guess, because I don't think Filoni will let me down, and as long as it like kind of like is a good successor to Star Wars Rebels,
right?
Like, and then I'm kind of get everything I want,
right?
Like, I already think that Rosario's going to do a good job as Ahsoka. What's her name looks really good as Sabine, and I don't care, and I'm very interested to see what they're doing with that character.
Yep.
Chopper, we've not even got that much footage of him, but in the footage we've got, he looks like perfect. It seemingly is adapted like amazingly. Right. Hera looks good, but besides a little bit of like costuming stuff, but I guess that the actress sounds like Hera and is like doing a good job from what I can tell.
And the characters that are being introduced seem like they're good. I mean, obviously, people are very excited about
character,
Thrawn.
Like Thrawn.
I mean, everybody's really excited about Thrawn.
They're bringing back Elsbeth from that Mando episode. Yeah. Ray Stevens is the Shin, who's like the Padawan girl. Right. Like with the other orange lightsaber, looks really good as well. Hu Yang, David Tennant's character. Yep. Like was the robot from Clone Wars. So like if you're a Star Wars fan who like is enjoyed like seeing everything, I think this show is gonna be like a very much culmination of like almost everything that Filoni's ever done. If that makes sense.
Morgan Isbeth or whatever her name was.
No, actually, this show is.
She's here.
This show is genuinely the
I'm
culmination
99%
of everything
sure,
Filoni's ever made.
It's all been listed that we're getting live action Tamara Morrison as Captain Rex.
I don't think we have official of that, but I think they're definitely.
Ray Stevenson obviously is in his last role.
Filoni swings for fences, okay? Right. Like most of what Filoni's done has actually usually been well received as well. Right. But the things Filoni's a part of tend to. They don't play it overly safe a lot of the time. Sometimes they rely maybe too much on like previous things, like bringing in a previous character from something, or like one of his own characters, which people can occasionally get like annoyed about. But like look at like Boba Fett, which he helped like write, obviously, or like Mando. Some of the things they've swung at that, or even the things they swung at in like the final season of Rebels, or like in Clone Wars finale.
Clone Wars final
finale. Like he swings for things when he does stuff. He understands Star Wars, and he's the first person I've trusted in a while who's actually like in charge, and maybe will have to make a big decision regarding lore in the franchise going forward that I think won't fuck it up, because I think he actually has the tools and things necessary. Again, I don't know what pressures are on him from above, which is always the fear here.
Right.
And I imagine.
You think R2 has any comments?
He's turned him off. Okay. He's charging.
Saving power. He's charging. Yeah, it's like episode 7.
Yeah, it's like episode 7. We don't need him on.
We don't need him on.
Because nobody likes R2.
No, nobody. Yeah, not like he's the
great. We just like seeing R2 standing there like a trash can.
Back to our board. Where's R2 on our board? He's like the 5th or 6th character. I think he's tied with Anakin
Yeah.
in terms of our favorite character. He's above Yoda in my book. So,
But yeah, there's even like words. I don't even think we had Sabine. Look at the characters that we got. But Sabine and Ezra A, like Sabine and Hera, A tier characters. Chopper S tier.
Chopper's an S tier.
Ahsoka's high.
War hero.
Kanan Jarrus is like an Ezra somewhere up here as well.
Thrawn,
Pretty
we have
high
Thrawn up real high
Thrawn's
too.
up high.
Yeah.
Like I think characters. There's so many opportunities for. Like
I need
Mando season. No. Think of the main thing I'm thinking of is the episode that he directed. Keep in mind, if for the Book of Boba Fett, which is like nobody thought was anything, and was kind of just like they made it just because they knew Mando wasn't gonna come out.
Right.
Like if we're being honest, like that seems to be the only reason that show happened, and it was barely even a show.
Yep.
Like because of that. But in that show, the one episode that like Filoni directed was that Luke Skywalker, like that shit. So like you're telling me that like nothing like that is going to happen in the show titled Ahsoka?
That's the whole episode where they're back in Tatooine and they get the new ship and everything.
No,
too?
the one after that. The one where
but
he
that
goes.
episode's good too.
That episode's great. That episode.
Those
like,
2 episodes are the best parts of Boba Fett.
And that's the biggest swing anyone's taken with Star Wars, like in terms of like beyond like maybe some of the dumb shit they did with the sequels that didn't land. But that's the biggest shit that like landed. Again, that episode is soured a little bit just because like I think the face tech is I think people got past the initial thing of how it looked, and people just be like, you should have just recast it. Like we saw the behind the scenes pictures of how the dude looked, and he just looked like Luke.
Let me make a couple comments.
Yeah. Oh yeah, you should. I've been rambling for a while.
I think let me comment on that. I think if they had recasted the what if they put in a different actor, Sebastian Stan.
No, I have always hated.
I'm just saying, but let's say
He's
whoever it was, then half of the universe would be mad. It's one of those things you're never going to make people happy.
But I think you just have to do it.
There are people I think if they're going to do anything else with Luke Skywalker, you're right.
And I think they're doing it because they don't want to do stuff with Luke Skywalker, which is dumb.
Mark Hamill?
No. Just like with
or they're
avoiding
Luke.
They're avoiding Luke Skywalker because doing anything with him makes their own shit look dog shit, which it does.
Right.
Like,
all right, so let me finish my points too.
Yeah.
On a personal level, I need this to be good.
Yeah, I do.
Like I need this to be an A+. Like this has to be great. I need them, and obviously a lot of us have joked about
Wars
this.
Needs it.
I need Star Wars as a universe.
Desperately.
Yes. As a franchise, they need this to be something like Strange New Worlds that brings everybody back together and gives us a sense of what they have to find a way to meet the needs of those surface level Star Wars fans as well as those deeper Star Wars fans. And there's only one guy that has the ability to do that, and that's Filoni.
This needs to exist.
Let me finish.
Between,
My only concern, and you've said it already, is that jerks get involved and tell Filoni, no, you can't do that.
Yeah, executives. Like I have fear of executives and like some of the people who make like higher up decisions, like Kathleen Kennedy and some of the other executives.
That's what I mean. People within that organization.
And decisions they would maybe make. Again, I think that because maybe this is Filoni's been groomed to do something like this for like 15 years. You know what I mean? Like he's been built up. Like he has. Like there's a reason that Star Wars has kept him around. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like all these years that he's managed to even be as like. Because again, he predates Disney. Like he was did almost all of Clone Wars before Disney, and Disney liked him enough that he got like Rebels. He was able to create Bad Batch, even though he doesn't do a lot of the writing for it, but he oversees it. He was brought on to Mando, and is like probably one of the better reasons why Mando is better than even probably Favreau. Book of Boba, the only good things in that show I think are because of Filoni. And I think when Mando lost him for most of the season, like especially on the writing, I think it massively suffered. Right. So, like I don't think Favreau has on his own had that capacity.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think you're definitely right about like.
Also, I'm looking at the director list, and the people he brought in this season look pretty good. Like he's got himself doing 2 episodes, which I think is good. He can't do everything. He's also the showrunner, which he's gonna be on set for fucking everything. So. Right. Steph Green, who's I think done some Book of Boba Fett stuff in the past, maybe like Watchmen. Rick Famuyiwa, who's done some of the better Mando episodes, and was brought on as one of the executive producers the last season. Peter Ramsey, who I think helped co-direct Into the Spider-Verse or something, or had something to do with Into the Spider-Verse. Jennifer Getzinger, who's done like some other shit, and then like Get Up Pazel has done like House of the Dragon. So like they have some good directors. I trust his writing more than I trust like anyone else who's like in Star Wars at the moment, besides like the Andor
It's
guys.
really, really funny because
Like-
obviously he can't write everything, and it's kind of like when I used to watch West Wing. Like Aaron Sorokin wrote the first like 4 seasons of West Wing, and then you just knew when he left, and he wasn't writing the episodes anymore because he just couldn't handle all of it. It just dropped off, and I feel like that's kind of where we are with the Star Wars universe to some extent. They've got to give him.
But this is supposed to be kicking
Let
off
him,
something big
let him build his team instead of like some of the.
Which again, they announced
people
all
they
that
bring
shit
in.
at like Star Wars
Right.
Celebration or whatever. God knows what's going to happen, especially because we're in the middle of the writer's strike at the moment, so nothing's
Right.
moving forward that they announced. And God knows if any of that was going to move forward. Even like the guy they got saying they were going to do like the Old Republic movie was the same guy who just like I like the director of the last Indiana Jones movie, but that movie fucking flopped. It's not his fault, but like he is now associated with like a flop movie. So is he still going to direct like one of the first
Well,
Star Wars movies to
The
come
one
back? We
thing
don't
about
know.
this summer was a weird summer because you've got Barbie and Oppenheimer that nailed it. You've got some other movies that have done very well.
Yeah,
But then you've
Spider-Verse,
also got,
yeah.
but most people would have predicted that Mission Impossible, Fast and Furious 10 would have done well.
To be
and
fair,
they,
Mission Impossible
they
did badly
both
because
did
of the
bad.
studio where they put it. They put it a week before Barbie and Oppenheimer, and that was a massive mistake. Like that was entirely like I think Mission Impossible if Mission Impossible released like against like Transformers and some other shit like during the
It'd come out
Spider-Verse
a
week,
little bit
like
earlier.
I think it would have kicked a lot of those asses, and those movies would have made even less money than they did.
Right.
Because that movie would have been like way better than the quality of like Transformers and Flash
think
and a
there's
lot
any-
of the other stuff like that.
Do you think
that
there's
came
any
out.
fatigue with Mission Impossible, though?
No, I think the Mission Impossible thing is just entirely where they put it. Like, they put it the week before the 2 most anticipated movies of the year, which were Barbie and Oppenheimer. Like,
Okay.
I think after that, they just got lost. It lost all its IMAX seats because Oppenheimer got them all the week after. So, which I think, like, they were trying to push, like, that show to get some IMAX stuff as well.
What else you got? Do you got anything else with Ahsoka you need to say? I think we've kind of covered it.
Yeah, I think we just kind of rambled about that for a bit.
Yeah.
I just needed it to be good for myself. I need, like...
Me too.
Especially because, like, for this part of the universe, like the post Return of the Jedi, where they felt was like a safe period to explore because they can't do anything near the sequels, and like they're not, like I don't know, like and that's where the Mandalorian is. That's where Book of Boba Fett is. They have. Think about it. Bad Batch was good. Andor has been good. Like those two things have been positive. And both of those things. One's an animated show, so it doesn't get the wider recognition amongst all of Star Wars fans that it gets. So that's a win, but it's not like a big win. And then Andor is almost an exception because I have no idea how it happened. Like, I don't know how, like, Lucasfilm had the capacity to produce something like that, given everything else we've seen. And I just assume that they just
to
lied
be honest,
to
you want
them
my opinion
constantly.
on this?
Like,
My opinion is that when they approached them, they said, we want to do a really dark thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they liked that. I think they wanted something, because remember, in my mind, they wanted Last Jedi to be kind of dark.
sure, yeah.
They wanted that like dark sequel-y thing, so I think they kind of sold it. And I think they knew how much money Rogue One made,
Yeah.
so they knew that this was a prequel series to set up Rogue One.
And critically,
so
word of mouth, Andor's a huge win. It didn't get the viewership it should have got, which is down to a number of reasons, but some just being it was called Andor, and like Andor's not the most well-known character. Although when the second season comes about, I guarantee you, Andor season 2 has great viewership.
It's
because
gonna be
of
one
the word of
right.
mouth, like it'll have amazing viewership the second time.
I'm gonna compare it to what happened with Ted Lasso. Nobody watched season 1 of Ted Lasso, and then when season 2 came out, a lot of people it started to get buzz. So I feel like Andor's going to have a similar.
Work. That's how shows usually
Yes.
work.
Well,
most shows aren't usually like smash hits
but
in their
networks,
first year.
networks are stupid,
Yeah,
and they forgot how they used to be good, like how they used to let things breathe. Like let a fine wine, let it breathe.
But
and
expect
get to the,
surprises in Ahsoka is all I'm saying.
Oh yeah,
like,
I think so too.
Like characters like Rex could show up, like Captain Rex, who's a
Yeah.
legendary character. Like Zeb could show up.
He
They
could
have
play a bunch of
Zeb
characters.
could show up. They have a whole character model for that guy that we got cameoed in Mando, and I doubt. And it looks really, really, really high quality. So I doubt it's the only time we're gonna see it used.
I think it was a beta test for that.
Yeah, and it looks so good, and it's probably the best like motion cap tech like for a character that we've got. like since the prequels. Like if I had to, like he looks so like embedded into the scene, like what he's in.
Will Ezra make it into the season, or will it be season
Ezra will
2?
be in the very late episodes because he's
This is
casted,
supposed to be more
so.
than one season because this is leading. Into
It
the
initially
movie.
sounded like it was going to be like a single thing, but now it's called a series, so which indicates
and they're
it's not a
planning
limited
on,
series.
and this is planning to lead to a movie, which is going to bring like everything together.
Yeah,
an
like
Avengers-style
Filoni's movie is supposed to be like a culmination of this era of the universe.
Yes, it's the,
Back to what
it's
I was
the
saying,
Avengers
though,
style,
they're on
bring
a bit of
everything
a
together.
for this part of the universe. They're on a bit of a. It's like yes, Mando season 1 and 2 are well received for the most part, and I would say by the wider Star Wars fans. Mando season 3 not good. And that was like kind of a softer launch to this newer, more connected part of the universe. So like if Mando season 3 and this, which are kind of the launches to this part, aren't good, then it's kind of over in my opinion. Like you've already failed the starter block. You know what I mean? Like so one of them has to land. This show could, if done right, operate really, really well between like Andor and like Mando. Like, that's where it should be if it's done right. But also, interestingly enough, like, the only other thing, and also Obi-Wan wasn't received well either. Like, in terms of, like, the wider, like, to the point where, like, when it got nominated for Emmys a few weeks ago, people were like, what the fuck? Like, why? Like, it was, like, embarrassing. Like, people were embarrassed that, like, the Emmys had even thought to nominate, like, Obi-Wan for anything.
Right, keep moving, because I don't want to get
Yeah, we gotta get some other stuff to talk about.
What else you got, then?
But yeah, I don't know. I just want to see some cool shit. I want them to make some big decisions.
I
want
want
to
to see
some
Brave
Legends
with this.
parallel stuff.
I want to see some Brave stuff with this.
Yeah. I don't want to see sequel stuff. I want a new thing on its own, like which I think we'll also get.
Okay. All right, let's move on.
I don't know. Blow me away. Let's see.
We've also been watching on Max.
Well, it comes out on. I think I know what you're talking about. It comes out on like Thursdays. I think on like Adult Swim. I think is where it gets released, and then it gets released the day after on Max. But My Adventures with Superman, which I didn't even see a trailer for. I don't think most of like the internet or anyone had seen a trailer for this. All I know is that like 1 week like before it came out, I started seeing stuff like on Twitter for it. RIP, I'm not calling it that. And people were like, why have I not seen anything about this? And people were like worried that because it was getting shoved on Adult Swim that it wouldn't get viewership or something. But surprisingly, this show is fucking like, I don't even like Superman all that much, but like this
is
cool.
the best version of Superman we've gotten in a while.
Yeah, this is really fun.
And it's very different. Obviously, they've already said this is not our regular Superman universe. They've already addressed it on the show.
Yeah. It's very like anime inspired.
Yeah, it's definitely very anime inspired in terms of the way they do like the cheeks and stuff, like when they're shy.
Yeah, the
or
facial
embarrassed.
expressions, some of the movements,
and even like the jerk, like whenever like Jimmy Olsen does something
or even
weird.
The aesthetic of the villain.
Oh my God!
The aesthetic of the villains is very like
Jimmy Olsen has a lot of like reminds me of like some of the characters in
which
Pokemon.
Jimmy Olsen becomes the
times.
newest person in Redhead Erasure by Hollywood.
What?
You don't know about this? So a significant amount of the time,
if you're a redhead, you become black.
This is
that
a
what you're
joke
saying?
that like I don't even care about, but this is like an actual thing. So a significant amount of like characters that Hollywood is like race swapped, which is its own like can of worms that people get into. Like a significant amount of characters that get swapped like are often redheads, and I can only assume it's because like they just look at the statistics and like which can we like swap that'll make like the least like ethnic group like upset.
Well, people
and
have
there's,
a lot
like,
of
not a lot
issues
of
with
redheads, so I
with
just
those
assume that they
gingers.
just take. So that's what I'm assuming. So I assume that some like producer who just looks at like how many redheads are there and just looks at the least amount and crosses that person out as like black.
Let's assume you're sitting in the room and you decide you want to race swap some characters.
Yeah, like
so you're looking at this universe and you say, okay, I've got Clark Kent. Obviously, we're not doing Black Superman. We got Lois Lane, who's got to kind of be.
She's Latina. She's a Latina Lois Lane.
Yeah, she's a little bit. Yeah, definitely. So you got Jimmy Olsen, and then you got Perry White.
Yeah, but Perry White's black in some.
Perry White's black a lot.
Yeah.
And even Lex Luthor.
And Perry White's been black
some
in the DCU
versions,
for like
and Lex Luthor is black quite often, but I think we've already determined that he's not.
Yeah, there's
this
like a
one.
background character that we think is Lex Luthor.
Was
at
Alex.
This point. It's
and he
Alex.
seems to
Alex.
be working Alex, which is, and I will say, if
Dr.
they do that,
Ivo, they have
no,
like,
but if
yeah.
they do that, that'll be the first time I think they've really done that.
Yeah, that's true.
I don't know if they've ever done unless I'm sure I'm wrong about this, but I don't remember them ever using Alex. He's just always Lex.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Interesting.
Alexander.
And they're doing a
or
lot of
something. I
like
don't think they've ever
classic
done
age like Superman heroes. I think that's
They're
what a lot of
almost
those
like
guys
in
are.
college right now.
No, but even the villains that they're using, like, because the villains are very much different. That's the biggest change from like any of the comic stuff is that the villain I think it's a
They're
lot of
definitely
like,
touching
Silver
on a
Age,
lot
I think
of
it's Silver Age
obscure-
villains, right?
Yes.
I think it's Silver Age Superman villains like Firestorm and shit, like so like
Right.
or like one just has like a firepower, one just has like
Right.
electricity stuff,
Right.
and they're people that Superman fans, from what I've watched online, seemingly recognize.
Right.
Like, and like so that's the only thing that I think there's a little bit of gripe that some
But at
people
the
have
same
with is that they've
time-
swapped. But
but
that's kind of built into the narrative though, because I think the way they're doing it is that all the villains are
Right.
using like Kryptonian tech.
Right.
Which,
But they also
which fell to the planet when
But
he
then
got
they also
here.
brought in Amanda Waller. Like so they
there's
did
Waller,
like
and then there's
a relatively
there's
new
the
character
general,
in the general.
which the general's probably Lois's father, I think,
Oh, I forgot about that.
because you had the whole like phone call thing. So I think the general's probably Lois's dad in this, in this
I forgot that her
context.
father's a general in some canon. I forgot all about
Is that a general? Is he a
that's-
general in some
I
canon?
think he is.
Okay, well, I think that that's Lois's dad, and she just hasn't connected the dots yet.
Well, it's fun because like most of the time, by the time Clark Kent start working at Daily Planet, Lois is already working there, and she's already. But then they did something really, really cool. And with
Yeah,
this
they did a
season,
multiverse episode.
where they did a multiverse episode, and we kind of already know there's the League of Loises and all that stuff. But then there's also in their last episode, which is also a two-parter, they brought in Vicky Vale, which is a Batman
they've hinted
character.
at wider universe stuff.
And they brought in
like,
somebody from Gotham. Like they said that she's from the Gotham.
Well, we've
whatever.
seen like a sign
So
for
I wouldn't be surprised we don't get a Batman.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
And I think we're going to get an older, established Batman.
Yeah, in that multiverse episode that we got, like first off they went to like a different universe that had like a bunch of different like artifacts and stuff.
Right.
Like it had like Dr. Fate's helmet and a bunch of other shit. Obviously the League of Loises indicates that there's like a wider multiverse. There was like a Bloodhaven sign, which is like where Nightwing, like where he sets up when he becomes his own thing.
Right.
Obviously, they mentioned
even mentioned what universe
Gotham.
this is.
They've mentioned
They
yeah,
even
they
mentioned what universe number
Yeah.
this is, and I didn't Google it to see if
No.
that's a specific.
I know, I imagine
I
it's
think
made
it's a
up for
number
this,
that we've
but-
not heard before. I think they established that this is a completely.
But
and
I
think-
want to see I want to see some of the other takes on characters like in the wider DC in this.
Yeah.
I really do. Like,
I mean, I think because like it's funny because he doesn't still really. He's kind of discovering his powers in the course of this.
yeah, he's not like quite full Superman.
He
yet.
hasn't really had
Which is
a
a little bit
moment
different
with
than
Jor-El
usual.
yet. He hasn't met.
Well,
Jor-El yet.
they did a fun thing where he can't understand like what Jor-El's saying because Jor-El's from Krypton and speaks a different language,
Right.
and he doesn't know Kryptonian. Which is I don't know if they've ever done that before, but like that's a cool that's a fun where he
I don't-
literally his dad is trying to tell him all the shit that we've got in
Like,
like Man of
like a
Steel,
boogala, like
but
a
he's
like.
speaking a different
What do you-
language. Like
can't
he's
you-
like I don't know what you're saying.
Your AI
Dad. Like,
sucks.
because how do you know? Like why would they speak English on Krypton?
Well,
like,
it's really fun.
It's funny.
It's really fun.
It thrives actually best. I'm sorry to cut you off.
They didn't screw around with like, oh my god, how come I didn't recognize it? Like,
No, they did like 5 episodes and then Lois figures out. They have a little bit where Lois is mad that he lied, but they get over that like immediately. So you don't have like an Amber Invincible situation.
but I love
like,
the situation where like they go to Jimmy and they're like, can you believe? Like, yeah, like
Yeah.
it's
Yeah,
pretty
Jimmy just
obvious.
knew already, yeah.
It's pretty obvious, and I love that Jimmy's like a conspiracy.
He's like a
nut,
YouTube conspiracy
and now he's
theorist,
he's gonna be
yeah.
a famous YouTuber type person because he's
Yeah.
got like 2 million followers.
And he was
stuff.
right about Superman, and so like I think that's why the idea that he was getting all the followers in the last
Right.
episode. All right, last episode he like Superman got, which there's like
Got
a
his ass
2-parter.
kicked.
There's 1 episode left. So he got taken by like the General and like Waller, and Waller's and like their main enforcer is like Deathstroke, which is an interesting choice. But to be honest, Deathstroke's interesting, and she's voiced by fucking Rick and Morty, like dad,
Right.
like for some reason, which is a little weird.
Right.
But yeah, I don't know. I don't know how he's gonna necessarily get out of that. But
Well, because one of the things that we realize is that he's starting to like,
Well,
he's
no,
starting
yeah.
to. able to do more. Like, he right now doesn't know his entire capacity of powers.
No, not at all.
So in that episode, there was a moment where he kind of like went nuts. Like, not nuts, but he like suddenly
he
his
beat
power
all the 6
scale,
guys, like beating him up.
all of a sudden his power level went up.
And only
then,
Ivo
and then
was able to
it
get
was
him
almost
because
like
of
he
the
couldn't
absorbing
maintain
thing.
that.
Yeah.
He almost couldn't maintain that. And I think Lois has
Well, even
a
like
piece
his
of,
super hearing
but I
just
think
kicked in
Lois-
for the first time,
yeah.
like in
But
last
I think Lois
episode.
in that little thing that she got from the League of Loises or whatever it was, I think she got a piece of kryptonite.
She did. Yeah, that's definitely kryptonite. Yeah.
You know, so, but that's a good show. So if you're looking
I don't know what that's all
for-
about because the cube
Right.
showed her like other universes where Superman like wasn't good.
Right.
So I don't know
and
if that's like,
weighing on her, and
which is also this thing called like Day X or something or Zero Day. I think
Right.
it was called, which they mentioned a few times, which seems to be like I think the same day that like when Clark landed on like Earth. I think because there's all this other Kryptonian tech as well. I think there were other incidents that were like dangerous, if that made sense. Where like that tech like wreaked havoc on like because that general seemingly was there for like some whatever happened on that like Day X like thing, and
Right,
and
so
that's why he's
yeah.
like fearful of Superman.
So again, if you're looking for something a little bit different, it's like, oh great, another Superman show. I think this is well done. It's a nice take. If you don't like Superman because you think Superman's too overpowered, this is a fun take on Superman because he's just a college kid.
I think the show
I think there's
actually
a lot of,
thrives
and it's got a
best-
lot of fun, but they're making it a little bit more dramatic as they go.
Yeah.
They're not falling into some of the Superman traps, which sometimes people can't stand.
I think the Clark depiction is very good. I think the Lois depiction is really good. People really like the Lois in the show.
Yeah. She's not obnoxious like sometimes Lois can be.
No, she figures it out pretty quick. She's also, but they also did this thing where she's like not as maybe like as impressive as like other Loises, which they even like pointed out specifically, like in that weird multiverse episode.
It's very Rick and Morty.
They're also
at times.
already a thing.
It
too,
feels a
which
lot.
They
It
didn't,
feels very Rick and Morty at times.
They're
too.
moving quick to with certain things, like Lois and Clark, like they did the thing where like Lois and Clark are already attracted to each other immediately, and then they like, which I think is usually the case.
Right.
And she figures it out pretty quick. Jimmy already knew.
Which is funny.
Yeah, which is fun. The show like kind of thrives best when it's just like the actual relationship between the three of them. I think, which is I don't know, that's cool. Like that's something that's usually not like for instance in the fucking like I don't think that like Rachel Adams, is that her name? Who plays what's her name in the DCU? Lois. You know what I'm talking about.
I don't know. There's been so many different.
No. In the one for the Cavill, like I don't think Cavill and like what's Rachel. What I don't even know. Like, look up her name for me, please.
Go ahead, keep talking.
But yeah,
it's Amy Adams.
Amy Adams and like Henry Cavill, and I like Henry Cavill. I don't think that Amy Adams is a very good Lois. I don't think their relationship ever like fully like sells it for me. Like I like the Lois in this show and the Clark in this show, like they sell it. Like that they like each other and like actually like you know what I mean? Like you agree?
I would agree with that.
Mm-hmm. Like I don't think a lot of the
because I honestly thought like a lot of people like there's a lot of people that don't like Superman Returns. I liked Superman Returns. The one with what was it, Brandon Roth or whatever his name
But either way, I don't think
But I thought Kate Bosworth, who played kind of she played a really good Lois. I thought she played one of the better Loises that we've seen.
Yeah, but I don't think a lot of the quiet moments in like the Cavill movies with her like work very well. I think like maybe if they work best in Man of Steel, if anything.
After that, it's bad.
After that, it does like their chemistry doesn't really come through. Like in Batman v Superman, it's not
bad
good.
In Batman, Superman,
it's not good in Justice League.
It's not good in Justice League. Although the Snyder Cut,
I mean, they literally murder Jimmy Olsen.
Better.
They murder Jimmy Olsen like literally by terrorists in Batman v Superman in the DCU. Right. So in this one, at least he's alive, which is nice.
Well, but I do think she's better. Lois is better in Snyder Cut.
Yeah, everything, but there's nothing that's not better in the Snyder Cut. I don't think.
But I mean, Amy Adams is good in that one.
Sure, yeah,
It
I'll give you
lines
that.
up more with the.
Well, she gets well, she's in it a little bit more,
right?
And she gets a little bit more explained on
what's going on with her
character
and Lois's, like in Superman's mom and all that, works so much better.
Well, with the fake Lois mom, because it's Martian
Manhunter.
That's
fine. I mean, but it still works.
Sure, yeah,
it still
I got
works.
you.
It was a much better take on it. Anything else on that?
What else? I'm trying to think. No, animated well, like very well actually. Pretty funny a lot of the time. Relationship between them three main characters are good. If you don't care about like the canon being like super exact for the Superman villains, then I think you'll like it.
Right. What else are we talking about?
I don't know. What else we got?
We were while you're kind of looking at your notes there.
Sure.
So it's funny. We just kind of decided that at some point we've got to rewatch the Looney Tunes show.
We would.
We watched a couple episodes, and I love that Lola. What's her name? What's his girlfriend's name?
Lola Bunny.
Lola Bunny is batshit crazy in that first episode.
Well, Lola Bunny is very interesting because
it's so funny.
Because
the whole premise of that show, of that Looney Tunes show, and I just got to look when it came out.
Yeah, they just live in a neighborhood.
2011, 2015.
Yeah.
And it's a good 10 years
kind of ahead of
it
its
should have
time,
come out
yeah.
now.
It's ahead of its time.
It's
yeah.
way so
like,
far
there are
ahead
a lot
of
of
its
shows
time.
that
like you were saying, like Bugs Bunny's like retired or something. He gets residual checks.
Because he wrote he made the carrot peeler or something.
Right.
And then so he just gets like residual checks every month, and that's like what his job is. Like so.
Yeah, because we never lived in a home.
He doesn't do anything.
Like,
he just lives in a house. He has
got
a
a house.
roommate.
He's got Daffy leaving.
Speedy Gonzalez lives there.
Yeah,
like in the
in
wall.
a hole.
Like,
in the wall. Hey, Speedy,
his next door neighbor is like the witch.
Yeah.
Like and the witch's son is like the monster.
Yeah.
Like what Mortimer? What's the big red thing's name?
Yeah, they basically live in a cul-de-sac.
Yeah.
And like Daffy's a loser,
Yeah, they
so
live
he
in a
lives with Bugs.
suburban town.
Yeah, he had to
like
yeah.
Porky's an accountant.
Yeah, like
and
it's
and that Daffy bullies like. It's like BoJack Horseman for kids, basically. Like
it's just so funny, like because I mean we still quote that one stupid line from that show, like envy and hate. It's like don't make me choose
between my two children, envy and hate. It's like hatred. He's like hatred.
And we watched like a meme today of one where he's like on an elevator, like and like maybe you're a psychopath, and then he gets off, you're racist, and like. You're like, those are just quirks. Those are just quirks.
It's like,
I gotta rewatch that.
Yeah, it's good. I'm trying to think of something. There was like one where it's like, Bugs, what are you doing in an Albanian prison? It's like, which that episode's batshit. Like if you've like watched the wider context, because the reason why he's there is literally a plot of the fucking episode. Like he gets like arrested for like being a spy, like in Albania, so he gets him in an Albanian prison. It's like, why is this in the children's Looney Tunes like show?
But that when he falls in love, but the
and
batshit
Daffy's
crazy
in special forces because of an entirely different arc in the episode, and then ends up where Bugs is. Like,
but it's funny because what's funny about that thing too is like stupid things that happen like continue on through multiple episodes, even like for something like that would never normally happen.
Yeah.
And it is this alternative universe like Bugs Bunny thing because like I think Sylvester doesn't even talk.
No, because
some
of them
he's
are
just a
still
cat.
just cats.
He talks
in
in the Looney Tunes when he's with Sylvester. I mean Tweety, it's fine, but like nobody can understand him. He's just a cat.
Yeah,
it's just hilarious.
Lola Bunny's very interesting on the show because like Lola Bunny actually
she's like a stalker girlfriend.
Well, one, she hasn't showed up a lot like in the mythos of like Looney Tunes. She's not like an overly present character.
She's not really a character.
No, well,
until Space Jam.
She was invented for Space Jam, and I don't think she's in anything else until this show.
Space Jam 2. show.
No, until this show though. But this show actually does a different. She's not the same character that she is in Space Jam. Where Space Jam is like an incribly like competent, like very
she's
overly sexualized,
yes.
like anamorphic, like animal. Human rabbit person.
Yes.
Like this one make like way just sexualizes her like way less and makes her like fucking dumb. Like it makes her like
I think when they did like Looney Tunes
and fucking batshit.
I'm pretty sure like with Looney Tune Babies or whatever it was called.
Yeah.
I think there's a baby Lola Bunny
baby Lola
in that one.
Yeah.
And then I think there are some animated like shorts now that she's in. But
sometimes they're afraid to make
she was a
female
new character for
characters,
Space
like,
Jam. Yes.
But I feel like a lot of the times they wouldn't do a character where she's just like she's funny and she's like because she's dumb. Like they wouldn't do that a lot of times now. But like that character sells it. It's never offensive. It's just like this character is quirky and fucking like batshit.
Yeah.
Like there's a scene where she's like, it's like I'm on the phone. He's on the phone with Bugs, and it's like there's a person with you that looks like you. I'm gonna hit him, and then like the next shot is like, and then she tries to fucking run Bugs over. Like it's like she's unhinged in every scene she's in.
Well, what is the matter with you? Like it's what's really, and obviously I grew up on Bugs Bunny. Saturday mornings, Bugs Bunny cartoons.
Bugs and Daffy are actually both perfect in the show as well.
Literally Bugs Bunny.
I loved Bugs
Mom
Bunny.
always jokes about like that most of my cultural references came from Bugs Bunny. Like what I know about opera and famous novels, most of it is from the original Bugs Bunny cartoons. I mean, there's tons of funny stories that I could tell, and the fact that they found this way to make Bugs Bunny like on that show, and even like the shorts that they just came out with that are on.
That feels like the most modern like version of like that we've seen, if that makes sense.
Well,
like the most like adapted to the modern age of that.
On HBO, they dropped some Bugs Bunny like cartoon type shorts,
Like
some
some
new
newer
updated
ones,
ones, and they're really good, and they do feel like the style of the old 1940s, 50s, 60s Bugs Bunny cartoons.
Yeah.
But the Bugs Bunnies, the original Bugs, has got the white gloves again. Like it's really kind of funny the way they kind of went with it, and they finally got some voice actors. The voice actor that does Daffy and Bugs are both really
And Daffy's just like the most horrible like human being.
He is
Daffy's like Rick from Rick and Morty.
Yeah,
basically,
definitely.
and
he's
worse.
the only
But
thing
he's
we
kind
liked.
of worse.
And he's the only thing we liked in Space Jam 2.
Yeah, Daffy was the only funny part in that movie.
The only thing we liked in Space Jam 2. The rest of it was just kind of like, oh my god!
Yeah.
Like I think they should have walked off the set, except for like what happened to our characters.
All right, last thing I guess, and then we can figure this out. Or what am I talking about?
I've been watching Peaky Blinders.
Yeah, I don't mind Peaky Blinders. It's pretty good.
It's Sopranos meets Gangs of New York.
Yeah.
It's very good, and I watched it because obviously, what's his name from Oppenheimer, the actor?
Cillian Murphy.
Cillian Murphy is so good in that show.
Cillian Murphy's probably going to win Best Actor.
Cinematically, it's very good. Oh, that's what we want to talk about. We want to talk about Oppenheimer briefly.
No, we don't got time.
I mean, I know we're late. I know we're late to be talking about Oppenheimer. I don't think we need to tell anybody that we thought it was great.
Yeah, really good.
We won the opening night.
Yeah, a lot of Oscar stuff that's going to get. A lot of people are going to get nominees. Cillian Murphy. Nobody else should even get nominated for Best Actor because they're just going to give it to
not
Cillian
even have
Murphy.
anybody else in the character. Ryan
Cillian Murphy
Gosling's
5
not going
times.
to get nominated for Ken.
I mean, maybe. I don't even know actually. Apparently, he's really good in that movie. So we haven't seen Barbie yet, but
he hates this movie. Hates men.
Good. I hope it makes as much money as possible, just to piss as many people off. So.
I think it's great because every time somebody complains about Barbie, that the ticket sales go up.
Yeah.
Every time somebody major, like some priest or something, like or it's not some minister, like bought a Barbie townhouse and then smashed it on the altar, so everybody shared it. So everybody was like, "I'm gonna go see that movie now."
But yeah, the only things that have made money this year are woke shit. So like woke shit, according to like the fucking detractors, because like Spider-Verse made money, like it's woke. Like I don't know what it's a pro-trans shit in
woke
there.
sells, man.
Yeah, like I don't know. There's lots of diversity. Fucking Guardians like made money. Like there's a fucking diverse cast.
It's funny because a lot of people were like
Barbie made.
There was a lot of weird because obviously there's a lot going on with Disney, and I don't want to get into the politics of it. But Disney actually ended up having a pretty damn good year because
this year, no,
they did the overall portfolio of the whole company. It's because they made cuts and they did some things. Disney is not like people thought like the anti-Disney stuff was going to really work, but Disney still found a way to make a lot of
you can
money.
look at the polling stuff and like as much as like the Disney is going through trouble, but like the political stuff isn't affecting Disney nearly as much as like a lot of people like are affecting Disney. The stuff that's affecting Disney just happens to be they're making horrific
they're making
creative
decisions.
They've made a significant amount of horrific creative decisions simultaneously while doing political stuff that like a certain subsection of people do not like, and that subsection has used that to be like it's not working because of this. When there is like some like level of overlap or whatever, but no, like Disney is not failing because they decided to make woke. They're failing because they're making shitty remakes that nobody wants to watch, or they're failing Star Wars, or they're failing Marvel. Like that's what they're doing, not because they're woke or because they made bad shit and they're rushing it out.
No, I've always said just make a good product and people will go see it. Like that's the joke. Like that Mattel was like, oh, we're gonna greenlight all these other toy movies. No, just greenlight more movies about strong
they're just beholden
women.
To the stock.
Just people will go. Like who do you think's going to see this movie? Like the problem always has been for like.
Well,
like
they're just
Mom,
executives.
For
They have
example.
no creative ability at all.
No, but the problem is that a lot of times when you look at the market for films, the big blockbusters are always targeted men.
Yeah.
And they always say, well, the larger percentage of the population in America, for example, is 51% women. So why aren't you making more movies to get huge amounts of women's out to the theater, and someone finally realized that when they made Barbie that you'll actually get a lot of people out to the theaters.
Well, like
And-
Mattel's stock price is just the highest it's been in fucking years because of the Barbie thing. So
Right.
the only executive like thing in their mind is greenlight every other product we have. So
I don't want to see an 8-ball.
Which again, that's
movie.
not again. Anyone with the brain knows that that's not the lesson you were supposed to take from Barbie doing well. Like,
Right.
like Barbie did well. Like Barbie, yes, Barbie would have made money either way. I think like Barbie would have made a lot of money either way.
Ridiculous
But it
amount
would
of money.
but it's making a ridiculous amount of money. One because of they did a good marketing job for it.
Right,
Let's
oh,
be
for
real.
sure.
And they spent a lot of money. They spent more money marketing it than they did making the film actually, which I think were worth it in this case. They did the right analysis, and that was actually Warner Brothers actually made a good choice with how to market something, unlike Flash.
Well, a couple comments. Like, so she's now the director. Is now the director that's made first female director. She's the highest female. Her film, the gross highest of all time.
Yeah, more than Wonder Woman now.
As of the other day, she was.
Well, besides like Frozen, I think, right?
No,
Or is that past Frozen now?
It's 25th all time.
Okay.
And that was last weekend. So it's going to move up at least 2-3 more.
Yeah, it's got to keep going.
It's going
for a
to
while.
end up being, when it's all said and done, probably top. I think it might make it into the top 10 all time.
Probably at this point.
Because to be honest, it's still doing
Black
well.
Panther for white
Like
women.
it's still in the theater and it's still doing well, and I don't think they're pulling it out anytime soon.
Yeah.
And people are going back and back and back. To
I think
see
it's
this
like
movie.
Black Panther. It's like Black Panther for like women, basically. It's like a similar
It's
like
simplistic,
cultural impact. No, it's a simplification of it, but it's like
It's
kind
a
of
fair
what
comparison.
It's the kind of the way
Yes.
it's what's happening with it.
So
Although men are watching it too and liking it, so
I mean, we just haven't got. I don't know. We just never got around to seeing it
No,
because
yeah.
of different for various reasons. I was away, and then different things. We just haven't found the time. I'd
all
like
right.
to see it. I'll probably just
I
wait.
guess I'll finish
Did
up.
you want
with-
to say anything? Didn't
with,
you have a couple DC things you wanted to throw out, or did you just?
All right,
not
well, Blue
wanna
Beetle
bother?
came out this weekend.
Yeah, and what are you? I don't know any. You didn't even tell me.
Which
so
Blue Beetle has good,
anything-
There's good reactions from what I can tell. Like from what I've seen, like it was mostly positive, but
Right.
it's just one of those things where it's like it made 26 mil this weekend.
How much money did this movie take?
Like 100 something maybe. I don't know. 120 maybe. I don't know. But either way, not good.
Right.
And again, it's not this to be, and it's an interesting situation. It's having like it made less than Shazam. Like I don't know. Like this movie was supposed to not be in theaters at one point. It was supposed to be a HBO Max release, which again, nothing makes money if you're like releasing a film straight to like Max. Like it's usually not like worth it.
Right.
But and theoretically, like this is a smaller production budget, so they were like, okay, we'll put it in theater and maybe it'll make its money back, and it might make like its money back eventually. Like I don't know, but 26 mil,
Right.
like opening weekend, really, really like Blue Beetle is not a like big DC character from what I can tell, but he's
Right.
not an unknown like DC character. Like he's a bigger character than like multiple guys that like James Gunn like has announced for his own like lineup of shit coming
Right.
out. Like if you're and like it was and it's hard to judge anything because like we don't know if like people are gonna suddenly return once it's like the James Gunn slate. Like, do we know that, or are
don't
people
know.
just giving up at this point? Like, I don't
Not if it sucks.
exactly. So, but in my mind, I'm like, okay, like Flash wasn't like well received, and you maybe like you can. There's a lot going on with the Flash and why that movie didn't make
Right.
money. But maybe like if you're an executive or whatever, you can be like, okay, the Flash didn't make money because we hyped it up so much, and then like the reviews were just okay, which is basically what ended up happening for that movie. They
So
ended up being
what
fine.
was supposed to be
Where this has
his
fantastic
first
reviews.
movie?
Whose?
Gunn's first movie.
Well, this isn't it. I don't think in the
no,
same
not Blue
way.
Beetle. What was his first movie supposed to
Like
be?
Superman Legacy, I guess is like the first official one.
And
that's
when
gonna
did
be
you even remember when they said that was going to come out theoretically?
like 25.
So
I
now it's
think.
26
Well, probably
because
of
they're
the
not
strike,
doing it. They
'cause of the
can't do
strike,
anything.
yeah.
They can't even write it. There's nobody sitting in a writer's room writing it.
Well, I don't know how much of it because he was writing it, so I don't know how much of it he had done before the strike, if that made sense.
But they're literally doing nothing.
But
right
now they can't do anything. Yeah.
So
So
there's
now
no-
you
there's
have to keep
literally-
in mind this probably pushed back
Everything is
further.
in development, like purgatory right now.
Yeah,
Very,
exactly.
very, very little is going on. So, for example,
There's some stuff overseas, but that's about it.
Yeah, like the only so for example, I
like
think,
some HBO stuff that gets filmed out of London is still like going kind of, but that's like about it.
But
like,
even that has slowed down a lot out of respect for the industry.
Yeah,
So
and there's
lot
still
of
Americans
things,
and stuff and people from other places that have to go over there and
like
who aren't
American
working
actors
as much,
can't go there, and
no, that's still scabbing. Like even if you're on strike in the American people,
And
like if you go over to Britain, you're still scabbing.
You won't work again in some circles. Like there was something like I saw, for example, Morgan Freeman was on TV yesterday, promoting a series that he did about the 761 Black attack.
Yeah, there are
tank
exceptions.
Legion. Let me finish my story. And they were very clear to announce when they introduced him is that film was produced, and they paid everybody in a different way, so that was allowed. That's why he's allowed to appear without him appearing as if he's crossing the picket line.
No, there are like the guild has exceptions out, if I remember correctly. Like there are certain movies, like if they were done before a certain time, like you were allowed to continue your press for in certain cases. Like there were, or if you had like very specific like deals that you had already signed on to that you couldn't get out of. Like there were specific cases like that. But then there's also stuff like A21, which produced like Everything Everywhere at All at Once, which is a smaller studio. It's not like one of the big like conglomerate ones. Like that one is already agreed. That studio has already agreed to all the guild's demands and is paying like accordingly. So people can go still work on that set and do movies for them.
And I think that was the same thing with
the Morgan Freeman thing.
With the Morgan Freeman project, which he got involved in because he said he never knew
which
that
again
there
also,
was a
which
black,
also shows
black
the hypocrisy
tank.
and the
I
greed
really
of it
want to
all.
watch that because I think you and I will really enjoy that because it's about, first of all, you and I often talk about, not on this podcast, about things that happen that we never hear about. And now I never heard. Have you ever heard that there was a black tank battalion that Patton needed?
Probably, yeah.
I never heard that before. And Morgan Freeman said he didn't know until about 12 years ago. He had never heard of it. Yeah. So that's why he felt it was so important to tell the story, because they had let these guys train, but nobody would use them. But then they were so depleted with tank crews after the invasion of Normandy that Patton was like, go get them. Like, and then they were like unstoppable, this group. Because they never pulled them out after they got into the war. So I'm really interested in this thing.
Yeah, to roll it back a little bit, and I agree with you that we should give it a watch.
Pretty cool thing to watch.
But to roll it back just slightly, but yeah, even like the idea of like A21, I think that's what the studio is called, is able to like pay all the what's being demanded, only shows the greed and like hypocrisy of the big studios as well that are refusing to do stuff like that when the little indie studios that have way less money and way less revenue and stuff like that than them can afford to do it, then you certainly can as well. So pay your actors, pay your writers.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely you know.
Speaking of actor who won't get paid though.
Okay.
Do we want to finish what you're saying though?
I don't know. I wasn't that important.
Yeah. Gal Gadot. So like
All
this
right,
was we're very late to this as well.
Let me mention something about this. Can I mention something before you go on your thing?
Sure.
I really like the first Wonder Woman. Now I can't stand her. And it's nothing political. I've just watched her in several things now, and she's not good.
I think I can explain this situation pretty adequately.
Sure, go ahead. Because explain it to me.
There's a couple things going on with this. So Gal Gadot was in like an interview or something, which I assume, I don't know if she was strike breaking or not, whatever. Yes. And she was basically talking about how like James Gunn and Peter Safran said, like, and I don't know like her exact quote, but basically she said that she had had a meeting with them.
They were developing
and they
Wonder
said that
Woman
they were
3.
going to develop Wonder Woman 3 like with her, and I assume it was like an Elseworlds like type thing. So like the Batman or like Joker, like not a part of like the main canon or whatever. And then within days, like DC and like Warner Brothers don't decide to like, you know, talk to her like actually herself. They just put out like a hit piece basically, or like one of those like variety articles where it's very obvious that like the source, and also from like the sources that I follow who like went and did like feelers out like into the industry and stuff, like the source for the variety article was very much inside Warner Brothers that had like gave this information out to quash the idea. I assumed that they thought that it would go away, and but it didn't. So they used on a Friday, I think it was. They threw out this like there's no Wonder Woman 3
the Friday
happening.
dump.
And they made Gal Gadot
They did the Friday
look,
dump. Too.
Yeah, they made Gal Gadot look dumb basically. Which I have my own like. I don't particularly like Gal Gadot like either. But a lot of people thought that it was pretty like shitty thing to do to Gal Gadot, who's already probably not going to be continuing as Wonder Woman. So then to also like embarrass her on top of that. And especially because like Gal Gadot in her own interview said that like they had told her. So then the Variety thing says no, that never happened. So somebody's lying. Right. And this is also one of those situations, even to go further back, that like this is entirely Gunn's fault. Like I like James Gunn. I like Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. I like a lot of most of the movies he's made. I think he'll probably do a good job with Superman. But like so many of the issues and the drama that like he's had to deal with, like as DC like studio head, like which he was gonna have to deal with anyway. You know what I mean? Shut up, man. But you see what I'm saying though? Like so much
Archie
of the
Archie finally joined the conversation.
Yeah, shut up. It's just. And then so much of like
apparently he's a big Wonder Woman fan
sure,
and he's very upset with you.
I don't care.
Okay, sorry about that.
But I don't even know where I was.
Sorry, I am a jerk sometimes.
I don't even know where I was
joke,
now.
So.
Where was I?
No, what you were before I very rudely, Archie and I rudely interrupted you. You were basically stating that like she's kind of put herself out there and then you trailed in saying that we like James Gunn a lot in his films, but he really is a terrible mouthpiece.
He just seems to say
for his
anything.
own stuff.
I think he gets
dumb
nervous
things.
and
he
like
said a bunch of dumb things that really hurt.
And a lot
Flash.
of them are things that were like they weren't in an interview, they weren't prompted. Like it was just, and I appreciate that you're trying to be transparent on some level, but I think his desire to do that. He's also answered questions that he didn't even know the answer to. Like they haven't decided stuff. Like for instance, they did the thing with Cavill,
right?
And he said, no, we're actually, like, scratch what we said 2 months ago. Cavill's not returning. It won't happen. We got to reboot. And then, like, when asked about every other character from the fucking franchise, he's like, oh, like, he won't say. It's like, no, everyone was fine with it when you were going to clean slate it, which is what this bitch needs anyway, given the box office of your last 3 films. So, like, and he was asked, like, specifically about Godot on Twitter before. He's like, no, we might do something with her. He's like, no, just say, like, we're done. Like,
well, then he had the weird comment that Blue Beetle was the first film in the new whatever.
Well, I assume he's just trying to, when he says shit like that, he has to placate some dumbass exec, because I assume it wasn't Gunn who decided, like, that Blue Beetle needs to be released in film now, right?
Things.
Yes, obviously. But at some level, he is still, like, an employee of a dumbass executive realistically above him, so occasionally he probably has to say some dumb shit. So I think the idea for Blue Beetle was like, no, maybe this movie isn't like, which his wording was horrible when it came to what Blue Beetle was. Like he said, like this is the first DCEU character, which I think just means that this actor we will use as Blue Beetle in my own thing, but probably ignore the rest of this, which is very confusing and doesn't help, and probably also just in the same reason that Flash nobody went to see because they knew it wasn't going to lead to anything, and nobody went to see Shazam because they knew it wouldn't lead into anything.
Did you realize I watched Shazam 2?
You've seen Shazam 2?
I stopped though.
You stopped watching.
I stopped it. I watched the first scene.
Yeah, and then you turned it off.
And I was like, I don't even know where you were. I just said, it's just bad. Like it was just, it reminded me of that first awful scene of Flash.
Yeah, I think both films are pretty similar.
And I was just like, I'm like, what the?
Which this has good reviews.
It was bad.
But
I just couldn't watch it.
Like with good reviews, and again, maybe when it's escaped the purgatory of what the DCU is now, and like this weird like in between that we're stuck in, maybe DC will be able to have good films again. But on the current way that like of what's weighing DC down, anything that has like in the in-universe label or like associated with the main line, whatever they're trying to do with DC, doesn't seem to be landing at all. And if that persists, like even beyond like Aquaman like 2, which is the end of like this lineup of films before we finally get to like
I
James
keep
Gunn
for-
stuff. I don't know how like Booster Gold is gonna make money if Blue
honestly-
Beetle can't. I don't know how I love Swamp Thing. I don't know how like Swamp Thing is gonna make money if Blue Beetle can't.
Honestly, I don't
Like,
understand. I keep forgetting that Aquaman 2 is still floating around.
And that's
It's
gonna
literally floating around.
And they've
out there.
refilmed, and they've done 3 reshoots for that. Probably
So-
refilmed the
so-
entire thing
so-
twice at
so
this
here's
point,
my- so
and
here's
it's
my
gonna not
funny
make any
thing.
money.
So it can't make any money because they spent $300 million on it.
Yeah, it's a similar Flash scenario, I think, where there's so much being
Or,
spent on it
yeah,
that
like
like
other
it doesn't have
things,
the
like
chance to
other
make
things
money.
that they
Or
keep
Indiana Jones scenario where there was
Right,
so
that
much
was
money
right.
spent on it that it doesn't even have the opportunity to make money.
Right.
Because you've already
Because you wasted so much money.
Because
on
again, they
different
reshooted
things.
so much of Indiana Jones, they reshot so much of like that happens a lot to things that like Secret Invasion is so expensive because they reshot 4 months of it.
I
Like
just can't understand how with Secret Invasion, which was awful. by
yeah,
the
yeah.
way,
Like I don't know if we ever
just,
talked
like-
about that, but that shit was fucking
No, 'cause
dog
we,
shit.
We
We're
skipped
not going to talk
episode
about
5.
it.
We skipped
We
episode
did skip
5
episode
and just
5 and went
watched.
to episode 6.
Yeah, we
you're right.
we skipped episode 5 and just figured we'd heard about what happened, so we watched the recap and watched 6, and it was just bad.
Yeah,
I am glad to see that the Marvel animated actors, I know there's not a lot of them,
The
but
VFX
that
guys.
the VFX guys basically formed a union.
Yeah, they're trying to. I'm not sure if they formed
So-
one yet, but they're trying to do something as well, and they need that shit.
They
so
need because they've been overworking those dudes.
Yep.
And ladies.
Mhm.
So, all right.
Trying to think
Anything
of
else?
anything else? Oh, back to the gun like
Yeah.
adult thing. Like it just like just first off, you have to clean slate this shit. Like
Yeah.
except for like 2 guys. Like if you want to keep like you're gonna want to keep Margot Robbie now as Harley Quinn after Barbie. Like that's gonna be like, you know what I mean? Like I think that's like probably gonna
All right,
happen.
well, let me comment on that because I
But, like
do
you need
feel
to
like
clean slate the Justice League at least.
so
like
you could Margot Robbie being Harley Quinn is so pigeonholed where she is.
yeah.
You almost could just continue this lame bit universe for another because you're not going to do more than one anyway. You might do one more movie. I think James Gunn still wants to do another Peacemaker season.
We'll see if that happens.
And
but yeah.
and if you just kind of not even mention any of the other Superman type characters, because there's nothing in those 2 franchises you need. You don't
There's a shit
need
ton of characters
you don't
being added in
you don't
Superman
need-
Legacy, you know what I
You don't
mean?
need
Like-
that You don't need that Batman. You don't need that Joker. And Peacemaker and Amanda Waller's kind of well liked in that bit. So just leave that Amanda Waller and don't even mention any of the other Superman or make fun of them in some way, but you don't need them to appear. You don't need them to appear at all.
Yeah, 100%. And,
So
this-
just
and
have-
Legacy has a bunch of new characters being introduced that have already been announced, like Huntress and like Guy Gardner, Green Lantern, and like a bunch of other shit. So
Bring
it's
them
like,
into that.
how are they going to be like? So is this Gal Gadot going to be running around with all these new people? Like, no. And also, like, Gal Gadot can't act.
No, and that's what my
Like,
point was.
And
I mean,
say what
I
you-
don't
you've already
think-
said this. Like,
Yeah.
in Wonder Woman 1, like say what you want. She does the fish out of water thing like well enough in that movie. I think like her style of acting like lends into her like innocence and like kind of like unfamiliarity with her surroundings and stuff like that in that movie. And I think that movie's fine and pretty good and still holds up pretty well. But everything she's done since then has been rather downhill. Wonder Woman 2. She's been awful.
Wonder Woman 2
she's
is
awful. I've heard she's awful in that movie Red Notice. That's
I'm
on
just
like
looking at-
Netflix.
I heard
she's
she's not
awful
good in that.
She's awful in that one like Egypt thing that flopped horribly. Right.
Death on the Nile.
Death on the Nile.
She's not
horrible
good
in that.
in it. You know what the problem with Death on the Nile is? It's like when you look at who's in Death of a Nile, like there's some of the best actors of our generation
Yeah.
in that film.
But
and
to be fair,
she's
nobody
just-
was good in that film. That film was awful, from what I remember.
No, I thought Death of the Nile was okay.
I thought people hate it, if I remember correctly.
No, I thought I'm okay with Death of the Nile.
Okay. I think the overall reaction to that film was like everyone's bad in it. And
It's
she's
done-
the worst
no,
of
no,
being
no.
like.
No, I Death of the Nile, because now they're doing another Kenneth Branagh as Hercule Poirot movie. So this will be the 3rd one.
Yeah.
Because they did Orient Express, they did Death of the Nile, and they're doing another one. So clearly it did well enough for them to justify doing another one.
No, I don't think. Death on the Nile's not that. Death on the Nile's not what you're thinking.
Yes,
of.
it is.
No, she's not in the sequel to that. I don't think. I think this
Death
is
of the
something
Nile
else.
is Kenneth Branagh as Hercule Poirot. I watched it.
Is he in that?
Yes,
Is she in
he's
that?
Hercule. That's the one she's in.
Gal Gadot. 1 second. I need to see something.
She dies.
Red Notice does. Okay, sure. I didn't realize that that's what
Yes.
that was. Sure.
No,
whatever.
I know what I'm talking about.
Okay.
Because I saw it. And
Either
I
way,
thought,
she's not good
no,
in that
let me
either.
finish what I was saying. My point was I saw it, and she was bad in it. She was in a movie with a bunch of other really good actors and actresses, and she wasn't good. Because Russell Brand is it. He's really good. Annette Bening's really good.
And again, her only other role before Wonder Woman that's like of note is like a random Fast and Furious character that's like probably the least personality of like all of the random ones that are around. She's good in the first Wonder Woman. She's fine in the Snyder Cut, actually. But like every time she shows up after that, like in Justice League, and then like all the cameos, she's like horrible, and they overuse her theme.
When you watch those,
and, like,
when you watch her in those performances, don't they feel like she wasn't even on set when they filmed them?
Yeah, kind of. Yeah,
It feels
that's what
like
it feels.
like
It feels
they
like
brought
it's
her
shoved
in.
there. Like,
They brought her in on a Tuesday, and everybody else was somewhere else, and they said, "Stand on the green screen and say this
we'll
line."
put you in. Yeah,
and look down and
that's
say,
it,
and throw your lasso on somebody, and let's
also,
do that
honestly,
same
like,
lazy
I think
bit again.
one of the main three needs to be a better actor. Like, I just do. Like Wonder Woman has more depth than what Gal Gadot's capable of. I know Wonder Woman doesn't always come across as the most like deep or like character with like a lot of stuff to tell, but like no, she is. Like if you look at depending on the arc, and a better actor could 100% play Wonder Woman and probably should. Like,
well, the worst thing about it is the best actor, character, whatever portrayal that they had, the most popular was Henry Cavill, and then they ditched him.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, you can't get ditched. Like, he was more popular than all the other people that you've mentioned that you might keep.
Right.
Like Henry Cavill's more well liked than I think Ben Affleck Batman. I think he's more well liked than Gal Gadot Wonder Woman. Like, I think which I guess those are the only two that I don't even know. Like, it's so confusing, everything that, like, they've, some of the things.
I mean,
I assume he's trying not to step on toes, and that there's some of the people that have made some of these shitty movies he still has to work with going forward.
But he could have basically come out and said, "Hi, I'm James Gunn, and as much as there's some good things there and some bad things there, we just think it's important to just have a clean slate, and we hope that you enjoy Blue Beetle, and it's a character that if you like it, we may keep that character because we think you're going to really like
so
this
much
movie.
of his stress could have been saved, but with just
why
clean
could
slating this.
I think that would have been more received what I just did as a press conference.
And this is like the third or fourth time we've had to deal with like a situation of a person being confused if they were going to stay on or not, and having a public like feud with Gunn about it, like which is entirely his fault. Like, and it's the third time that like Gunn said something about what he was.
Someone take his phone away.
No, like because he said that about Affleck too. He's like, we're gonna do a movie with Affleck, and then Affleck's like, oh, I'm not doing that.
Yeah,
like it's happened.
Right.
Or Gunn said like we didn't even wait like a day for Flash to flop, and then he was like, oh, he's gonna be the Batman director, like which is like okay, let's cause myself my own issues.
He's done a bunch of weird things that he stepped into things and I don't make any sense. All right, I think we're out of time here.
All right, well, my last thing I'll say about Gadot, and even for Gadot, like since Wonder Woman, she's at a PR blunder after PR blunder.
Yeah.
Like she had again, people forget about the Imagine thing during COVID, which people still very much remember. Remember when all those celebrities were like, we're going to make everyone feel better by singing Imagine into our cell phone. That was Gal Gadot set that up. Like, that was her brilliant idea. Like, not to mention, she's been bad in every movie she's been in, besides the Wonder Woman role. So she's not been able to maintain any groundwork and has only embarrassed herself in other things. She comes across kind of, like, fake at points as well. And then to get into something else that I won't get into very deeply. I won't get into it very deeply, but her Israeli politics aren't great.
Right. She's offended a bunch of people.
Yeah. So
and she's allowed and to be fair to her, she's allowed to have those opinions, but then I don't have to want to buy her product if she has.
Yeah,
she's
she can
allowed
have
to say
whatever
she wants, but then I'm allowed to not. I don't want her to get canceled.
Yeah.
I just don't want, because I don't believe in that. I just don't have to purchase your product. You're allowed to have free speech and say whatever you want. But that doesn't mean that I have to buy your product. Go do the projects.
And to be fair, too, there's a lot of people who the opinions I'm talking about. Right. They are not like.
No, it's not super.
They're not like niche opinions that like people like. There's even a lot of like left leaning establishment people that have those same opinions, but that you know what I mean. But either way, that is becoming the thing that we're talking about is becoming a more of a boiling point that is affecting like stuff like this more than it used to, say 5-6 years ago.
Sure, I think
like
that's
this
a very
is more
good
of a
point.
cultural like point that people care about now.
There's-
more than like there's more like I remember 5 years ago you couldn't even talk about this, and like the idea of it even being like a one or two sided thing, like a two-sided affair, was just no, they're just terrorists. Like you know, I'm not trying to get into it.
No,
Like
yeah.
it's
No,
a
no.
very very complicated issue
It's
that
very,
we do
very,
not
very
have the
complicated.
knowledge to.
And part of the reason why it's become so complicated is because
It's come to a head.
because of extremes that have gotten too much power.
Yeah.
And that has led to some problems because most people want to support Israel, but now it's become something because of extremes.
Yeah.
And that's really what the problem is, because they've pushed too far, so to speak,
Yeah.
in my mind. But all right, you got anything else?
Yeah. That's it.
Okay. Well, it's, this was nice. It's always nice to be back in the studio with you. I'm looking forward to Tuesday with the drop of Ahsoka.
Hoping for the best.
Yeah, I think it's funny because that group's a very, you guys are kind of like, you're all over the place in terms of your opinions. It's a very diverse panel on 716 Attack Legion. And it's not negative, but you guys all have very, very different opinions. So
we're different types of-
if
we
you're
seem
still
to-
with us,
yeah, I'm the more
watch
like-
out 716 Attack Legion. Look out for the return of Zach Squared, or whatever it's going to be called. But more importantly, check out, and we're going to invite you on at some point onto the Double Fist Punch podcast, which is going to be a Star Trek podcast where you're going to review all the shows in order, so to speak. And on that show, but we are going to be a very positive Star Trek themed show. We are not going to be like, we're not going to be those people out there that are mad and hate stuff. So thanks for watching.
As positive I am about Star Wars all the time.
Yes, that's you, Mr. Positivity. That's what we call you at home.
Yep.
Thanks for watching. We'll be back next time.